Thank you, Laurence, for joining us.
Oh, thank
My
you for
first
having me.
question, thank you. My first question to you, and it's going to be a very dumb question. What is mediation?
So no dumb questions. Mediation is a way that a neutral, impartial person can help people who are in dispute with each other, who have differences, find a solution to their dispute.
And how does it work professionally?
So in terms of the process,
Yes, in terms of the process.
so the parties will come together,
Parties who are in a legal dispute already?
or who are not yet in formal court proceedings.
Okay.
They will gather together, they will talk completely confidentially, they'll talk privately with the mediator, confidentially, they'll talk together if they wish to, and work together and collaborate to find a solution. They won't always find a solution, but the mediation can help to crystallize what are the really important issues for them.
What if they are already in a legal dispute? There is a long-running court case they are involved in. Can the mediation be processed?
Absolutely.
So how does
In
it
the
work?
same way that a dispute can be settled any time up to and including a trial, you can have a mediation at any point. If the parties agree, in England, the court can accommodate a period of time for a mediation to take place. So the timetable to trial can be suspended and parties can engage in a mediation.
And you need a mediator for that.
You definitely need a mediator.
What does a mediator do?
So a mediator will facilitate a constructive conversation between the parties. They'll help the parties identify what are their interests, what are their true needs, and help them to themselves get to a solution.
And how is this process initiated? Tell us more about it.
So the parties will agree on who will mediate. Once they've agreed, they'll enter into a mediation agreement. It will cover the key things that underpin mediation, such as confidentiality, so that everyone knows how the process works. The mediator will talk with the parties, ideally ahead of the day of mediation. Mediation could be in person, it could also be online.
Okay.
And there are different ways to hold a mediation. And particularly during COVID, online mediation became the norm.
And how this sector, the mediation sector, is not evolving in a country like the UK?
Mediation has really grown here over the last 30 years or so. At the beginning of the 90s, it was very much an alternative, an unusual form of dispute resolution in England. People weren't used to it yet. It's evolved now to the stage where, although it's still known, and even in our court rules that are coming in October, a change to the rules as alternative dispute resolution. It really is a non-court-based solution, a non-court-based form of dispute resolution. So it's no longer alternative, it's very much mainstream. So we've had, even in the last year, changes. Major case in the Court of Appeal dealing with mediation, showing that the courts can order mediation to take place. That change will be reflected in the changes to our court rules in October, where the courts look to promote alternative dispute resolution, and there's an express recognition that they can order an alternative dispute resolution process, ADR, mediation for the most part to take place.
So is it being done on an industrial scale? Can we say that?
That is a very interesting question. I wouldn't say it's as large scale as industrial. Certainly in the smaller claims, so claims up to 10,000 that are money claims, with some exceptions. Mediation is automatic. It's part of the process, and that's been the case since earlier this year. So that will lead to an increase in the number of mediations. But so these are mediations using the court's small claims mediation service. That may well move up into the higher claim value pieces of litigation. But it's not yet industrial, but it's definitely mainstream.
Definitely mainstream. Tell us about yourself, your role as a mediator. When did it start?
So I first mediated as a mediator in 2019, but as a solicitor I've been mediating, helping my own clients to mediate probably 25 years or so. My mediation practice involves civil and commercial mediations, but also community mediation, so helping people within the community to resolve their differences, that mediators can help them in that.
Tell us about civil, commercial, and community mediation, how they differ from each other.
I think what's interesting is their similarities as well as their differences. They differ in their appearance. That one is, for example, a claim involving money. The other may be a dispute between neighbours. But at the heart of many of these disputes is something that they have in common, which is people and their needs and what their true needs really are, how they can achieve a solution that is satisfactory for them, how they can collaborate to arrive at that solution. So I think, although on the surface there are differences, and clearly there can be very large money sums involved in the civil and commercial side, but there are a lot of things that these disputes have in common.
Any major mediation cases that you can recollect and share with the audiences which have really been really impressive and made headlines or something like that?
Well, I think core to mediation is confidentiality. But let me tell a story, if I may, of one that is not what I describe as major, but perhaps illustrates the power of mediation. This is an early mediation of my own, where two parties had been in dispute and in court proceedings for a couple of years. They arrive at mediation, time limited. We had a few hours together. One came with 2 bundles of emails that had passed between him and the other party, and said, "Can I show these to you?" And I said, "Well, tell me the story because we've got limited time." Within a few hours, their dispute had been resolved. They walked out, the one saying to the other, "It's good to actually speak to you after all this time." So they'd engaged not in constructive conversation, but in a war of words in writing. And so the mediation helped them to engage constructively, and they got to a solution.
Wow. What's the rate of success in mediation? I mean, if you see litigation on the one hand and mediation on the other, so how do they compare and contrast?
In England, one has some information on success rates through an audit that's carried out every couple of years by an organisation called CEDA, the Centre for Effective Dispute Resolution. From memory, in terms of success rate, it's around 70% on the day of a mediation, with perhaps another 20% or thereabouts settling in the period following a mediation.
And that period is how long, usually?
I don't recall.
Just average, just...
One can imagine 1 or 2 months.
1 or 2 months, but not but it doesn't run into years.
No. In fact, if it ran to years, I don't think one could say that the mediation would have had anything to do with the settlement. But they don't put a specific time limit, I think, in the audit on that. But my guess is around that 1 or 2 months afterwards.
What would be your guidance to aspiring mediators?
My guidance would be learn from others, observe others mediating, get experience as a mediator in whatever way you can, whether it's through doing community mediations, whether it's for which you need to learn the process, which is slightly different, or doing pro bono mediations, doing mediations through some of the schemes that are available. There are a range of entry points, and get experience.
And how to get that qualification?
So there are a number of accredited mediation training providers, and it's a question of choosing one that suits the type of mediation that you want to practice in, whether it's civil and commercial, whether it's workplace, helping people resolve differences in the workplace, whether it's family mediation, the particular issues that arise in families, particularly on divorce. There's a range of providers for each of those.
My last question. So when someone wants to become a mediator, so he reaches out to different organizations or the service providers who train you in mediation. Does that training hold the scrutiny of law?
Training with an accredited provider gives a bench, in a sense. It provides a confidence, a level of confidence for people working with a mediator, that they have had proper training. But the training is really just the beginning. It's the start of a learning process. Mm-hmm. In fact, the learning process continues throughout a mediator's career.
So how can someone involved in long litigation or maybe short-term litigation reach out to you if they need help?
So in terms of reaching out to me, I'm contactable through my website, Laurence Katz Mediation, and always happy to talk to people about issues that they're having in terms of their disputes.
Thank you so much, Laurence, for your time, and this conversation indeed was very useful and helpful.
Thank you very much to you. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.